Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
We've talked about a lot of really great real estate books on the show. If you want to see a list of all the books that we've mentioned, you can check them out at rentalincomepodcast.com/books. Well, I thought on the show today we would do something a little bit different. I'm interested in learning a little bit more about investing in mobile homes. The returns are just through the roof, and these properties are really cheap to get into. So I thought I would bring on the show Rachel Hernandez. She's also called the Mobile Home Girl. She writes a blog about investing in mobile homes, and she's written a couple of books. And I thought it would be good to bring her on the show and pick her brain and find out everything there is to know about investing in mobile homes. So, Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, one thing that I don't know a whole lot about mobile home investing, and I think that you are a good person to talk to because you started investing in single-family homes, right?
Correct. Uh-huh.
And then what made you want to switch to mobile home investing?
Okay, well, my background is I started out in single-family homes. I did what a lot of folks do. I started out bird dogging and then eventually wholesaling to other investors, looking for deals for other investors. But initially my plan, Dan, was just to kind of build up enough cash to start buying and holding properties for cash flow. So, once I wholesaled for a while, I soon became a landlord and I started acquiring rental properties. But at the same time, I became kind of a burnt-out landlord, and I didn't have time to do anything because I was always working and trying to deal with tenant issues. And I'd actually even hired property managers to manage the properties, but then even still, I had to manage the managers. I received a little bit of income from the rent payments, but not much because I still had a mortgage, and then, also HOA fees as well too. So it was just a lot of issues and a lot of headache, very time consuming, and it wasn't, for me personally, I think having that mortgage really, really takes a big chunk out of the payments that you receive every month because you obviously have got to pay the mortgage.
Right.
So what I did was I kind of got out of single family homes. I sold my entire portfolio, which is pretty risky, but I got out of it and I got into mobile home investing, and I've just loved it. I love mobile home investing because it requires a smaller amount of funds to get into compared to a single family home. And I'm at the point where I can buy these mobile homes free and clear without a mortgage. And then whatever income I get from the payments is I'm receiving it every month versus I have to pay the mortgage. I have to pay HOA fees.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy it.
It does seem like there's a real low barrier to entry. What does a mobile home generally cost?
Well, it depends on obviously the types of neighborhoods and also what area of the country that you're living in. I mean, some parts of the country I've heard mobile homes go for as low as $1,000 at nice homes, and then other parts of the country, like California, I've heard mobile homes go for as much as $80,000 for a 1972 home.
Wow.
In a community. So it's all spread across the board. But, what I tell people is, if you're going to get into this type of industry, like anything, like real estate, you want to research your market first. And it's a bit scary. And I'll tell you what I did, but I don't want to scare any of the listeners out there, Dan. But when I first started out, I visited all the parks in my areas, and I visited about 200 mobile home parks.
Now, I've seen some mobile homes that are in parks, and then some that are just like on land. Is there a difference, or is one better than the other?
Well, the difference is if you buy it in a park, usually, which is a manufactured home community, the park owns the land. So whatever the home is sitting on, you're paying the park for the privilege of having your home sit on there, and they call it lot rent. And that basically, when you buy a home in those communities, you're just buying the home, not with the land. So it's a personal property, kind of like a car.
Okay.
But if you buy a home out on land that it's attached to real estate, it's actually considered real property. And with that, you get the tax advantages because it's real property. But it comes at a higher cost.
Okay.
Obviously. So
is it better for someone just starting out to invest in the park because of the lower cost, or are they easier to sell if they're in a park or to rent out?
Right. For me personally, I think it is because there are homes out in land, and sometimes you're not familiar with the community, or the homes could be spread out. So you got to spend more time marketing, more time getting out there and trying to find people to fill these homes. I've known fellow investors, they went out and into the land home business, and they thought they would just fill these homes on land with no problem, but the issue was trying to get people out there to actually live in these homes.
Right.
If you got a community already, Dan, there's already people living there. They've got family, friends. There's already a community of people living in those mobile home communities. So in terms of marketing, it's less of a hassle, I would say.
I want to see if you could maybe walk me through how you evaluate a deal. So if the first thing you're going to look at is to make sure that you have a good park, how do you know if a park is a good park or a bad park?
Sure. Well, the first thing people need to do, like I said, is evaluate their market. I don't know if you've heard of that book. You've probably read it. It's called Influence by Robert Cialdini. Basically, in order for you to know the difference between something bad and something good, you need to have something to compare it to. Mm-hmm. So, always be safe, but go through all the parks in your neighborhood. I would tell people, go to the bad parks, go to the good parks. And when you get there, you'll know, because then you'll have something to compare it with.
Okay.
But the good parks, you'll know, because usually they're paved. Usually in the good parks, you can't park on the side of the street. You have to park in the driveway because it's a fire hazard. There are no fences usually allowed in the higher end communities because they want to keep everything uniform. And there's no animals that are astray, obviously, for liability issues.
Right.
But then the lower end parks, there could be fences outside. You could see a stray dog or two. Not all the sidewalks may be paved. There could be some dirt roads, and there's definitely a big difference between a higher end community and a lower end community.
Okay. So. And the higher end communities are better investments generally than the lower end?
Well, I mean, it's all subjective, Dan, and I'm not one of those people who say, "Oh, you got to do this." And there are a lot of investors, and it's a big turnoff to beginners that say, "Well, you have to do it this way, and this is the only way you got to do it," and blah blah blah. It really depends on your personality. For me, I tried working the lower end parks when I was just starting out, and for anyone that's listening, in my book, How I Got Started in Mobile Home Investing, I talk about my $2,000 nightmare. And basically, I tried buying a home for $2,000 in a low-end neighborhood, and the types of applicants that I got just did not work with my personality, and I just could not fill it with these types of folks. Okay. And so I ended up trying to market to the higher end communities to get these people to live in this my home, but they didn't want to. They're like, no, Rachel, we want to live in the nicer communities, in the nicer homes. So,
okay.
I mean, it's just me, but there are a lot of investors. It's their bread and butter, the lower end or the middle of the road communities. So it really depends on the person.
All right. So we've found a good community. How do I find a deal? How do you find a trailer that's for sale?
Okay. That's a good question. Now, the majority of people who are just beginning, they just start, kind of like residential real estate. They just go out and look for sale by owner signs, or maybe they'll check out Craigslist, and then they'll start meeting with sellers and they'll start negotiating. But what happens is if you're actually working in a community, the gatekeeper of the community is actually the community manager and the owner. So the right way to do it is first to figure out what communities you want to work in. And then once you decide on what communities you want to work in, you got to go in and develop the relationship with the manager or the owner so that they will give you the nay or the yay, whether you can work in the community. And if they say yes, then you can start going out and finding deals and building the relationships. In the beginning, you got to do a lot of hustling, like talking with people in the neighborhoods. They're not just going to start giving you leads, but once you start doing some deals and they see that, oh, well, this person's really serious about what they do, then the leads will start coming in from the park managers and the owners.
Do the parks like investors? Do they like that you're coming in there and buying a place, but you're not going to actually live in it, that you're going to rent it out? Do they have any problems or any restrictions on investors?
Right. Well, the majority of parks, which I was surprised, actually welcomed me to come in there because they'd rather have someone guarantee that, hey, well, the lot rent's going to come in every month, and this person's going to put in a good resident for our community. But again, that takes time in building up the relationships.
Okay.
Out of all the parks that I visited when I first started out, there was only one that told me I couldn't work in their park. So, again, it's experience and it's a lot of trial and error, but they're out there, the parks that will with investors.
Can you give me a average, say for one of your deals, like how much you paid for the trailer and then how much you rented it out for?
Sure, no problem. Well, I'll talk to you about my most memorable deal, and it was my first deal. And I had actually already had a relationship with the park manager. I got to know her, and she said, yeah, you can do deals in this park. But I actually had to go out and find the deal. And it took me almost a year to find my first deal. And the way I found it was just by passing out flyers in the community. And this family, they just wanted to move. They had been living in the community for, I think, close to 10 years. And it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home with central heat and air conditioning. And they didn't want to put a for sale sign out there because they just don't want all these people going through their home, and they just wanted a quick sale. So we did a bit of negotiating, and I negotiated a deal where I bought the home for $3,600, and they moved out. They even cleaned it too for me. They moved out, and then in a couple of weeks, it was just cosmetic issues, nothing major I had to do to the home. Within a couple of weeks, I found a nice family for it, and they moved in. They gave me $1,000 to move in, and they paid me $250 a month for that.
Wow. That is a really good return. Wow.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I would have never found the deal if I didn't put myself out there. If I had waited for the manager to call me, then it may not have even happened. And I may not even be here at this podcast talking.
Right. How about finding tenants? Is it a similar process to find tenants for a mobile home than you would have to rent out one of your old single family houses? Are you using the same kind of things to find renters?
Right. Well, usually with single family homes, the best way, I mean, there's so many ways you can market in the neighborhood, but I mean, one of the best ways is to work with residential real estate agents and have it listed on the MLS. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much what you do when you're working single family homes and trying to get them filled. Now, you can do the Craigslist thing. It takes just a little bit more of an effort, or pass out your own flyers and do your own marketing, but that's typically what I see the best bang for your buck when you work single family. As far as mobile homes and communities, what I found works the best is having a great relationship with the park manager or owner, because they're the ones that people come into the office asking, are there any homes available?
Right. Right.
And if they like you and they remember you, then they'll probably point them to you.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but like I said, Dan, I mean, in the beginning, you got to do a lot of your marketing. There have been times where things have been slow, and I've had to do my own marketing with the flyers, and I put signs just outside the park, and I found some good residents that way. But usually they're just family members or friends of family members who are already living in the community. So.
Okay. And are there a lot of other investors that you're competing with?
Unfortunately, the manufactured home community, it's not as popular as the single family home community. And the reason being is there is a real negative stigma of manufactured homes. And I hope by, kind of sharing my story with others that we can, erase that stigma, because not all communities are created the same, and not all communities are like what you see in the movies, like the movie 8 Mile with Eminem. And so I find that there are actually less competition with manufactured homes. The people who are in it, you won't find them online. You won't find them. No, they could actually just be living in the area. They could actually even be living in the park doing deals. They could be, just in the local area doing it. And this is something that they just picked up, and they've never read a book on this type of investing before, which was pretty surprising when I found out. So, yeah, it's just one of those things where it's kind of its own little niche.
Right, right. And can you finance at all, or do you have to have cash to get into mobile homes?
Well, if you're buying used homes, it's really difficult to get financing traditionally. I've known some investors who've actually, what they did, which I don't really advocate, but this is what they've done. They've pulled equity out of their residential real estate properties to pull cash to invest in manufactured housing. There have been others I know who've actually worked with private lenders and just kind of, made money on the spread. So there are a couple different ways to work it. I'm more of an advocate of, if you don't got the cash, you shouldn't be buying and holding. But that's just me, So I'm a real advocate of free and clear real estate investing. So.
And one of the strategies that you use that I think is interesting. So you will rent out some of the mobile homes, and then other times you might sell it to them on owner financing. So how does that work?
Right. Well, basically what I do is I like to give people options. And I think in this day and age, no one likes to be tied down or committed to anything. So since I'm working higher end communities, a lot of these folks, they're coming from higher end apartment communities, like apartment homes, and they want to have an option to purchase a home down the road, but they don't want to necessarily be tied into it. So basically, I give them that option to purchase the home if they want, but at the same time, they know if something comes up, like, medical issues, they have job relocation, whatnot, they can get out of it from there. So I don't necessarily tie them into it, like a mortgage. And mortgage means death, actually. Yeah. So that's kind of what I do, and just to give people options. And I think people appreciate that.
Well, I feel like we've just scratched the surface. If somebody wants to learn more, you've got a lot of great resources. Why don't you tell everyone where they can track you down online and where they can find you?
Okay, sure. Well, probably the best place to find me is on my website. It's called adventuresinmobilehomes.com, and it's just www.adventuresinmobilehomes.com. You can find me there, and if you're interested in learning more about mobile home investing, I do have a book on Amazon. It's called Adventures in Mobile Homes. how I got started in mobile home investing, how you can too. If you'd like to check it out, it's on Amazon. And then I also did just release a new book. It has some stories on my real estate and also the mobile homes. It's called Real Estate Investing Sucks: How to Deal with Change and Find Success as a Real Estate Investor. And that book is currently number 1 on Amazon in the real estate investment section. If anyone would like to learn more about that, it's on Amazon.
If you missed any of that, I'll go ahead and put all those links on our show notes page. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 51. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.